Well, hello and welcome to this midweek online reflection from Epiphany Anglican Church, Hoppers Crossing. It's great to have you joining us. You might be aware that this week is the second week of Lent. Well, growing up, Lent wasn't part of my spiritual upbringing. I went to a variety of different churches growing up, and none of them really observed Lent. And it always sounded a little bit funny, a little bit legalistic. Until I was a young adult and I began to see the value of having some more focused spiritual disciplines in my life, and took a lot of comfort from the time that Lent offered me to repent, to mourn my sins, and to turn towards the cross in preparation for Easter. One of the things that I've been trying to explore over the last few years is the dimensions of Lent other than just fasting. While there's great value in giving up something in order to focus more on God, Lent typically encourages people to think about three things: fasting, prayer, and almsgiving. And it's this third one that I want to talk to you a little bit about today. It's a bit of a funny word, almsgiving. Just to avoid any confusion, it's spelt A-L-M. So we're not talking about giving people alms, but it's one of those kind of old English words that we don't hear very often. So what does almsgiving actually mean? Well, it's probably easiest to describe it as charity or giving to the poor, giving to the needy. But there's something about the old word almsgiving that I think is really valuable that I want to share with you. You see, the word actually originally comes from the Greek word for mercy, eleos. It's kind of changed form a few times to end up with the English word almsgiving, but its origins are in the Greek word for mercy. And in one of the readings that you might have come across last week, Matthew chapter 6, part of Jesus' famous Sermon on the Mount, Jesus actually uses the word that we get almsgiving from. It's kind of a word for giving generously, giving mercifully. And it comes when Jesus is warning people that when they give to the needy, they should give in secret so that their left hand doesn't know what their right hand is doing, and so that their Father who sees in secret will see what they've done and reward them. And when Jesus says so that your giving might be in secret, he uses this word for giving out of mercy. What does that mean to give out of mercy? I think it's a really important focus for us to have in Lent, because it can correct a lot of things that Lent could become that it shouldn't be about. First of all, Lent isn't about kind of forcing your body into submission. It's not about giving up chocolate for 40 days so that you lose weight. It's not about proving how spiritual you are. In fact, by beginning Lent with Matthew chapter 6, the church seeks to remind us that that shouldn't be what we make it about at all. But it's really challenging, I think, when we're doing something that is a spiritual discipline, to keep our eyes fixed on mercy, and to think about whether or not our lives are becoming characterized more by mercy. See, when Jesus came and spoke to his growing followers, to the crowds that were wanting to hear more about who he was and what he represented, he stood up and talked about a number of things that were regular spiritual practices for Jews in the day. He talks about fasting, praying, and giving to the poor. And at no point does he tell his listeners to stop doing those things. He doesn't say that they're bad or unhelpful things, but he does get them to shift their focus away from doing those things to prove themselves, doing those things to win the approval of others, or doing those things to win the approval of God. And one of the things that is always at the heart of what Jesus says our spiritual disciplines should be about is mercy. We get a similar thing in Matthew chapter 9 when Jesus says to some of his listeners who really aren't getting what he's talking about, that they should go and find out what it means when God says through the prophet Hosea, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. We get the same word in the story of the Good Samaritan, when one of Jesus' listeners is questioning him essentially about how many people he has to love. He asks, well, who's my neighbor, as a way of kind of restricting the number of people that he has to love. And Jesus tells this story when the people that you'd expect to be the good, righteous, spiritually upright people pass by a dying man on the road to protect their own safety. And then this man that everyone would have assumed was the embodiment of sin, a Samaritan, is the one that doesn't just stop and help, but gives with overwhelming generosity and self-sacrifice. And at the end of the story, when Jesus says to his questioner, who was the neighbor to that man, the Pharisee replies with, the one who showed mercy. And Jesus' reply is, go and do likewise. Well, the picture that's behind me on the wall, if you've been to my house, you would know that this is in the dining room of our house. And it used to be in my office at work. And I'd place it over the seat where people would come and speak to me about their concerns, whether it was students at my school or other teachers or parents. And it was there as a reminder that when I looked at that person, I should be like the Good Samaritan in the painting, that I should seek to show mercy to that person. But it's something I've got to keep reminding myself of, because I don't know about you, but I'm way more comfortable with spiritual discipline than I am with mercy. I'm way better at ticking boxes, and if I have to give to the poor as part of my Lent ritual, that's something that I can do easily. But to think instead not about giving to the poor, giving to the needy as a box to tick, but to think instead about giving mercy. Well, that's a real challenge. And it's a challenge that I need in this lead up to Easter, because it's something that I can't do in my own strength. And to do it, I need to fix my eyes upon Jesus, who, as the ultimate act of mercy, has gone to the cross for us. So I can't think of a better way to prepare for Easter than to think about what it means that God is a God who desires not our sacrifice, but our mercy. May God bless you as you continue to serve him this week.